Darlene Cannon is dangerous. She's pro-Chrissy Harris. He starts knocking on the doors for Chrissy Harris. I'm starting to wonder what's going on here, that the mayor is putting his thumb on the scale. Next, I find out that Chrissy Harris is getting $12,000 from the Ryan family for her campaign. Right. It was so obvious that the Northwestern was doing a power play, trying to slip it behind the scenes so that no one noticed that they could grab a seat of power on city council. And unfortunately, they succeeded, and Chrissy Harris is going to keep that seat. Now, I bet she'll keep it for Northwestern, too. Who knows if that Ryan family money ended up going to her account later on. I'm just saying, I think we're here, Jeff, because we're not here for niceties and formalities. That's good. We can know these processes before. But let's remember also, the Harley Clark Mansion was almost demolished several years ago, but for a referendum that the people went out and got to force their aldermen to stop talking to the demolitioners. It was the people who took the power with a non-binding referendum during election year. I don't think that house would have been standing, but for the fact that the people took it into their hands because city council wouldn't listen. And we're afraid that's going to happen again. Yep. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that neighborhood associations make their views known when these things come up. This is a neighborhood association. What's the likelihood that the Central Street Neighbors Association will take a position on this and let the city know we don't want the damn thing?
Actually, the Central Street Neighbors has already taken an initial position. If you go to our website, I think it's still on the front page, and I don't want to put words in the organization's mouth, but the thrust of it was that these are legitimate concerns that we've heard from the neighborhood. Sort of an initial raison d'etre of the organization is, I'm sorry to use so much French because of publicité, was that one of our fundamental beliefs is that the people closest to the issue, whether it's a stretch of sidewalk or a stretch of street or a particular alley, are literally local experts in how that land is used and should be a source and a resource of first resort by policymakers and planners. And Central Street Neighbors said these are legitimate views and they should be listened to. And without a laptop in front of me, I can't pull up our full statement. We took a little brief from it. Somebody, one of our members, wrote to council and said we don't represent them on that, but actually about 98% of the responses we got were like the sentiment I sense in this room, pretty supportive of our position.
That was that.
Yeah, we sent it to the city council and it's on our website. It's still there now. Please take a look.
Some questions over here.
Yeah, why don't we take a couple from this side?
One more here and then we'll go.
Great.
What can be done via zoning to make Evanston more affordable? In particular, making kind of what's so-called middle housing more feasible, as the current plan is very restricted in certain areas and therefore kind of is concentrated development in the downtown rather than kind of spreading it out more. Increased density would also help support kind of the commercial downtown, which has kind of suffered recently and particularly because of the pandemic.
I think the question is, what do we do with zoning to make it more affordable? That's a very complex question, and one that Evanston's actually been struggling with for a century. On its face, you might think, well, supply and demand, if you build more supply, that'll lower the price of housing. However, household sizes have been going down. The city of Chicago built an enormous number of units over the last 30 years. I think in particular of the 44th Ward, Wrigleyville. Bernie Hansen built so many, the former, or approved so many, because the alderman there had a prerogative that they were referred to as Bernie bungalows. And has Chicago become more affordable? Brooklyn has been adding density like crazy. Has Brooklyn become more affordable? San Francisco, you have barely a spot of lawn anywhere on it. not affordable. I'm hard pressed.
Okay.
Anyway, this is my answer to your question is this, is that I don't think that you can get more affordable housing. I was a member of a board for a community land trust, which kind of got run out of town, but former politics. I believe that we need to have an actual market disruption in order to get true affordable housing. The market will not create affordable housing on its own. So just changing that, you will just end up with more density.
Housing being built to make housing more affordable.
Well, I flip that. Not necessarily. Wait, say the question is stopping housing. Knocking down housing will generally not make housing more affordable. No, not necessarily. Sir, do you want a question?
So, we have lots more questions, and I think we need to move on.
Yeah.
So we have at least 5 people. I'm going to move to this side, one, and then back.
I'm not sure, but it seems to me that you said we should hire a lawyer. Is that what you're saying? And if we do decide that that's our course of action, including going to all the meetings and all that, but if that's the course of action, you know, how do we unite to hire somebody? Do we need a celebrity lawyer? Because it just feels like that is, I mean, I've been in a few meetings and I feel like we're not being listened to. And it feels very frustrated. So is our next action is to hire a lawyer? How do we organize all these nice people? How do we do that? That's my question.
Can I just say something to your point? Livable cities who has prepared this.
I can't hear you.
Livable cities who prepared this flyer has hired an attorney. And they are working on a lot of different things. So on this Join Livable Cities, go to the website, come together as an organization, and everyone can help each other. Because with one voice, we do not have a lot.
And
we can donate
We have a lot more questions.
Yeah, and then instead of donating.
The lady in the blue shirt has been dying to ask a question.
Well, so have I.
But since I've been watching you guys, you're next.
Okay,
She's
and
had
I think
to
they
give
have
us
to.
the whole meeting.
But you talked about the land commission. I have 2 questions. You talked about the land commission and that you have to present facts and data. You have to present facts and data. Northwestern has manufactured facts and they have manufactured data that is questionable. So how do you counter that?
Can I answer that for a minute? I have to take off my MC hat and put on my communicator hat. You counter facts with facts. You put out your own, you put out the actual facts everywhere you see the fake facts. You use social media. You all, everybody has a phone in their pocket. You've got an organizing tool right here. Do not negate the power of social media. There are also petitions to be heard, and I have not seen a politician yet in any country at any level who does not react when they get a pack of papers on their desk. Petitions, letters. I don't care if somebody is mayor, city councilor, president, or king. They react when they see communication from voters.
I'll try and. It's frustrating if you feel that facts are being mispresented and misinformation and disinformation are touchstone keywords of the current public conversation. But you don't have much choice other than to, assemble the best facts you can. In regard to the previous question, I don't encourage. I've never encouraged litigation, but if you have what you think is a legal problem, and what I've tried to convey tonight is that zoning has legal as well as political sources and implications and ramifications, then seek the best legal advice you can find. I wouldn't, not necessarily a celebrity lawyer that doesn't necessarily impress a judge or jury, but do that. In regards to affordability, I'd like housing to be as affordable as possible. All I can say is that I started studying housing when I was living in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts, which are among the densest towns and very comparable to Evanston in many ways. And you can walk through the alleys and the roads of Cambridge and Somerville, and practically every backyard is filled with a coach house, and anything is twice as expensive there as it is here. The value of land goes up when more rent can be extracted from it. So there's unintended consequences in desirable places to putting greater density in, because it causes speculators, developers, flippers, and other folks to think that to pay higher prices for land on the idea that they can tear down a single-family home, put up a duplex. At the same time, then you get dinks or whatever, they're buying 3 flats, and a building that used to house 3 families is now housing 1 family, only it's got 3,000 square feet. So it's very complex, and you really have to look at the economics of it, not just the ideology.
In the downtown neighborhood that I live in, since I moved in, there are 120,000 new units in about a mile radius, and unfortunately, in that time, rents have tripled. So just having more units available does not guarantee, without public pressure and without planning, it's not going to make the rents go down.
So hopefully this won't require a long answer, because I know there are a lot of people that have questions, but I know that the wards themselves cannot be self-governing, otherwise they'd be cities. But how much jurisdiction does each ward have over its own composition? Do they have any, can their vote possibly be weighted, such that the wards outside of that community have less of a say in terms of how that, the 7th ward in this case, is structured?
That's a really good question. So does the board have any anonymity? What can happen?
In Chicago, the aldermen are often referred to as little mayors, and they have a lot more prerogative, even though Chicago has a strong mayor system. The alderman has a lot more say over what goes on. So theoretically, they're more responsive to what the people of their ward want. In Evanston, there was, and it's ebbed and flowed. There have been times when aldermen said their first duty is to the ward. Find other council members now will say, "Gee, I have to look at what's good for the whole city." The short answer is that a ward has zero power as a political entity. The people of the ward have zero power and zero legal power. However, but in addition to citywide referendums, you can have ward-wide referendums. Also, the people of the ward can elect or unelect folks. I'm involved right now in a battle in Will County, largely over zoning, and it's gone on for 2.5 years. And one of the things that the folks opposed to what's proposed finally realized was it's largely a political matter, and this last election they ended up changing several council seats, and so now it's more of an open question. So that's one power that the people of a ward theoretically retain anywhere in the city of Evanston, is to vote somebody new in or out, but that only happens every 4 years.
But quicker than that, can you repeat, did I hear you say there was a ward-wide referendum that's possible?
Well, you can organize a referendum, an advisory referendum, by precinct if you want. You can just 4 precincts. People think that you have to do it citywide, and you don't have to. You can be a subdivision. Any political subdivision can have an advisory referendum, so that's easier than getting signatures from the whole.
And where would people people find out what the rules are to get